Agenda meeting to order, and welcome everyone here today, and thank you all for coming out. If anybody's presenting, I would ask you to please speak into the microphone at the end of the table, and everybody please silence their electronic devices if you can. And all the commissioners are here. County manager is here except Jeff Britton. Jeff is I think away on business, and other staff members are here, so we thank you all for coming today. And item 2 is approval of our agenda for today, and as you notice, it's amended 3 new items: building reuse grant, and then the agreement extension with Burke County and Destination by Design, and approval of the Part F grant for Lake James Overlook Park. And with that, I'll be happy to accept a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Maynard, for the motion. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. That passes 4-0. Scheduled public hearing, presentations, we have none today. Scheduled public hearings, BDI, a building reuse grant for Funaflora, and public hearing, which we'll have, and that's Hope is going to present today for Alan, who's out of town, I believe. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.
And you also have, we have really 2 things, and the other one is the building reuse grant for Project RSX and public hearing. So I'll let you go ahead with both of them.
Correct. And I think from the original information that had been sent out, we are asking for an amendment to the resolution. We had been notified from the Funaflora that they will be adding 12 jobs. And so also we did not, I guess, have the correct number for the per job request. And so at 12 jobs at $12,500 each, we would be applying for $150,000 for the building reuse grant, which would be a 5% match or $7,500. And Funaflora has bought the Whippoorwill Farm, dairy farm, and this purchase will allow them to increase their production by 20%. And I do think they have some other funds or plans for the dairy farm. But if awarded this grant, that will help them with the renovations of getting it prepared to do their brewery there.
They're going to save those buildings, I guess, out there, right, Hope?
I do believe that is their plans.
Yeah. All right. Any questions for Hope on that agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, I had one, Hoke, and it came around that, what was it, the Whippoorwill Dairy and the brewery that's buying that out?
Yes, sir.
My question was, will drinking be permitted on that trail? And if so, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, how will it be controlled, et cetera?
I am not sure of their plans to that extent. I can certainly find out and let you know, but right off, I do not know. I'm sorry.
I'll answer that question if I may.
Okay.
So the way that it works right now is if they're permitted, they'll be permitted to brew. And they'll be permitted to brew under an agricultural extension. And that does not allow for any drinking or anything per se at this time. There's some acts being looked at by the legislature, is my understanding, in the short session, that might allow for tastings and things just like the winery. And so the wineries allow for you to sell a bottle of wine, that kind of thing. Same provision would probably take place over at the breweries. If it doesn't fall under that, they'll have to come in and permit under an equestrian center as a club. And then they'll be able to sell basically as a private club. Those things. The other thing that will take place out there is they'll be required to bring in a planting scheme because they're going to be including their products into the beer itself, you see, and that's why it's an agricultural type of activity.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah,
Any
thanks, Scott.
comments, Maynard, with Scott?
Well, I think the second part to that question that I didn't hear, if they do allow food permits, whatever, for consumption of alcohol, Do we assume it will follow the standard rule with most other companies or businesses that will sell alcohol throughout the county, or will it be limited, or?
It would be basically the same, it'd be very similar, but it depends on the permit that's issued. And if it's going to be a private club, or if the legislature changes some rules this session to allow for breweries to operate under the same guidelines as wineries. And that's what they're hedging a bet on, is that legislation may take place.
And at that point, though, it just becomes a tasting event and not a
They would-
selling event. It will be complimentary, more or less.
Well, that's right, but they would also be able to sell glasses of beer to people at the bar.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? Being none, without objection, we'll keep that on the agenda, and I hope the next item is yours too.
Okay. Project RSX is a existing textile industry who are continuing to grow, and with that, they are continuing to need some assistance with building improvements. And so for this project, we would be applying for $500,000. They will be creating 50 new jobs, and we are looking for the 5% match. The total's $25,000. We would be asking the county for $12,500, as well as asking Hildebrand, the town of Hildebrand, for $12,500. Some of their improvements that they're anticipating will be roof repair, HVAC replacement, some modifications to their lighting and their sprinkler system.
Good, thank you, Hope. Any questions for Hope on that?
Hope, did you say 15 or 50 jobs? I'm not sure I heard.
50 new jobs.
50. Comments, questions? Being none, we'll keep that on the agenda as printed. Thank you, Hope.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, this takes us to consent agenda, and the first item is K, reappointment to Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The term of appointment for Julie Cosby, seat number 5 at large, on the Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team ends April 30th. Ms. Cosby desires reappointment. We requested an attendance roster, but I don't believe I've received that yet. Further, Anita Pope's term for seat number 3, parent with a child under the age of 18, also ends April 30th. However, she did not wish to seek reappointment, and so we're asking that her name be removed at this time.
All right, comment or question for Kay? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item 2 is yours too, Kay.
Thank you. Wayne Whitnut's term on the Drexel Planning Board, ETJ, ends April 30th. Mr. Whitnut occupies seat number 3, which is an alternate position. The town of Drexel requests his reappointment, and he has excellent attendance.
Comments, questions? All right, that'll stay on the consent agenda. Item 3, Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Carswell's term on the Parks and Recreation Commission ended March 31st. Mr. Carswell occupied seat number 3, representing Drexel. Mr. Carswell has informed staff that he has moved away from Drexel, and so we're asking to remove his name from the roster and thank him for his service. Margaret Curry is the Drexel Chargers representative. She has submitted an application to fill this seat. Also got an email from Lowell Summey,
Paul Summey.
indicating that they have approved Margaret's appointment on their end. Also, Jack Perry's term ended March 31st. He fills seat number 10, which represents Oak Hill. He desires reappointment. And I do have an attendance roster, but I left copies on my desk, so I will email that out to you tomorrow. So we're going to replace Mr. Carswell with Margaret Curry and reappoint Mr. Perry.
All right, comments, questions on that consent item? Being none, we'll leave that on the agenda, and item 4K is still yours.
Thank you. The Community Development Department requests the appointment of George Mull III to the Burke County Board of Adjustment to fill seat number 2, which represents the East, to replace Mr. Greenhill, who has been unable to attend meetings. This would be to complete an unexpired term ending September 30th, 2018.
Any comments or questions on that? Being none, that'll stay on the consent agenda. All right, items 5, 6, and 7. Scott, the first one is community development, MOA for Duke Energy, funding support of public recreational facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first item has been in the works for a good long time. As you know, Duke Energy, through the comprehensive relicensing agreement process, pledged certain monies for projects that are recreational in nature. Recently, they finally got that license after just a short wait of 10 years after application. And we had gone to Duke Energy and we had requested that our funding be moved from 8 years out to within 18 months of the license being approved. So a couple of years ago, I went and I addressed the board, and they said that they would be happy to do that. And so what this agreement does, this is a memorandum of agreement between Duke Energy to release $547,099. In the CRA agreement, that shows up as $500,000, but because they weren't able to meet their 2012 deadline, they've added on additional monies that are in the agreement. So it has come out now to $547,099. We have 2 pots of money coming from Duke for trail development. This one is for what is tagged as the Lake James Loop Trail. Now, of course, it's the Fauna Flora Loop Trail. The other amount was for $600,000, and that's for the Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trail. That will probably go to $680,000 once we contact them and ask for that money to be released. So as part of this agreement, Burke County essentially agrees that any land that is to receive money or spending, that we have legal rights to that land. We either own it, we lease it, or we have right-of-way agreements ensuring that those lands are good for a period of up to 50 years. Actually, legally, we're bound to 40 years because that's the term of the license. But Duke is going to ask that that license be changed to 50 years when they revisit with FERC here in the near future. So I can assure you, gentlemen, that we do have access and legal means to put the trail on any of those areas, and we're ready to move forward. So within 30 days of receiving a signed memorandum of agreement from the chairman, Duke will release those monies to us within 30 days, and then we can start building trail with it.
Good. Questions for Scott? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have several questions or comment to clarify. The bottom line there says, well, not the bottom line, but the budgetary effect for year 15-16 budget is $547,099. And the question, I guess, is that a pass-through budget? Because somewhere in the comment I read that Duke will reimburse us for our expenditures. Do I understand that that will be first paid by the county and then reimbursed by Duke Power?
Let me answer that question. Normally, that is how it is done with a lot of grants. If you receive a grant for recreational trails program, then we expend the money and then we're reimbursed. In this case, Duke will send us a check or a wire transfer in this actual cash amount. So that has been withheld into an account by Mark Oakley, and he will be sending that. So it will not be reimbursed. What we have to do is, after we build the projects or expend the money within 60 days, we need to contact them, show them pictures, and a basic line item description of how their money was spent.
And the other question I had, Scott, had to do, I understand that and appreciate that. The timetable, do we have a timetable in which we expend this 547 or lose it?
We will not lose the money. It's guaranteed for the term of the license, and the term of the license is 40 years right now. So we have a good long time to expend it if we need to. However, this money will be expended within 4 years.
Within 4 years?
Within 4 years, we will expend that money.
Probably less than that.
We will have spent half of that money in 2016.
I figured that.
Any other comments on item 5?
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Maynard. All right, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item 6, Community Development Agreement Extension. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had, well, let me jump back. We've been working on this for 2.5 years, the trails and the plans and that type of thing. In-house, we wrote a master plan that was the Lake James Loop Trail, in which Mr. Carswell and a group of about 20 people committed a lot of time and energy to. After we completed that trail, I came to you all and asked if you would front $100,000 so that we could update that master plan when we obtained state trail status. So when we became Fauna Flora State Trail, we felt that we needed to update the plan that was written only 6 months before, and then detail more elements of it, more engineering, more design, nail down some things. And at the time, there were some politics that I had to take care of with state parks in order to get the trail as close to the lake as we wanted it or needed it to be. So we took care of those things through $60,000 of that $100,000 commitment. That left $40,000 to build trail. So part of that original agreement was that they would do the new master plan for Fauna Flora Loop Trail, and they would also build the first 1.5 mile section of trail based on the criteria and designs that went in to that new plan. So beginning in about 3 weeks, we break ground on the Fauna Flora Loop Trail, and that trail will begin at Fish Hatchery Road. This request is for an extension of that to add more miles. Essentially, we want to add 8 more miles of trail, and we also want to do some more design and planning work when we hit the neighborhoods of South Point, and also as we are approaching Harris Wisnet Road, there's going to be a new development going in there, and they're willing to work with us. And so they want to design this in with their new neighborhood as they start that process. So this extension will actually make it to where we build 9.5 miles of trail by 2017. And that's really a significant increase from what was originally approved in the CRA. Originally, the CRA only asked for 5 miles total of trail to be built with the $500,000 for the loop, out of the Loop Trail money. We'll have built 9.5, done the planning, engineering, design, master plan, and not even expended half the money. So that's what this request does. It asks to build an additional 8 miles of trail and to take care of the planning and design elements as we go through those neighborhoods.
Good, thank you, Scott. Again, questions for Scott or comments?
Mr. Chairman, this came on after I did all of my studying on Sunday, and I'll just lean on JR a minute. You have reviewed this extension contract and all is well with it?
I have reviewed it, and Scott and I will be
Okay.
Good, thank you, Maynard. Any other comments or questions? All right, that'll stay on the consent agenda, and item 7 is yours too, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have applied for a part of grant Parks and Recreation Trust Fund monies for 2 years. If you remember, Crescent gave the county 141 acres of land about 3 years ago, and as part of that, we wanted to develop the park, and we're allowed to use the land, which 141 acres, which comes out to $1.75 million as our full match. Well, we applied twice and we did not receive the grant. It may have been a good thing we didn't receive the grant because the road in, we didn't know it early on, to the county property to where this project would take place is a massive road, a massive undertaking. If you go out to Fish Hatchery Road right now, you'll see across from it the entrance road into County Park. And they have big machines out there. They are running nonstop right now trying to get that done because they had a delay of it. But anyway, we can, when the project's completed within 6 months, we'll be able to access all the way near the lake where this project takes place. I apologize that this is coming to you late, and I thank Kay for being so sweet and helping me get this to you gentlemen. But we weren't going to apply for this the third time. We thought we were going to be able to hold off, and based on the new plan that we paid $25,000 for, come up with another part of grant. However, we realized also that we would lose the ability to use the county land for any match at all if it doesn't go in this year. And the only reason they'll let it in this year is under a waiver that they have to agree to. So Parks and Recreation would have to allow the waiver, which I'm told they will. And so if we get this in and they fund the $380,000, then essentially we would be building several things, and they would be down near the lake, and it would include a loop trail. It would include a pavilion to where you can overlook the lake. We're actually redesigning the pavilion now into more of a tourist point of destination. We're thinking about designing something that looks like a large bird's nest that people can go up into. We'll call it the Eagle's Nest. And it sounds like a silly thing until you see the actual design of one that's been done up in the Adirondacks. But it winds up on all the magazines, and it winds up on all the marketing things that go on in the region. And that would definitely catch the eye of some people. We'll be looking at other grants as well for the park. But essentially, this one will be handicap accessible. It would allow us to have picnic area, picnic facilities, a walking trail. Part of this agreement is that wildlife will come in and they will build a fishing pier. So that's essentially what we're hoping will happen with this grant request if they fund it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on this.
Again, questions or comments for Scott on this?
Question and one comment. Who builds these rustic cabins you've got located on here?
Well, so the answer is, Maynard, what we would do is we'll use the new county park plan for the yurts or cabins or tree houses, depending on what they are. Those would more than likely be built under a public-private partnership agreement. So somebody would come in and then they would sign a contract or an agreement with the Burke County to build those and to run them and to pay us a percentage each year accordingly.
The comment that I was going to make, Mr. Chairman, this is shaping up, that entire thing is shaping up probably better than we dreamed 15, 20 years ago when we were on this board. I'd like to recommend that we as a group one day get this guy and go take a tour, see what's going on out there, see.
I don't know, can we get in there with the road the way it's now, Scott? Because they got so much equipment in there. I was looking the other day how to get in there, and I don't know.
I can contact the manager out there, and you have to wear hard hats and bright vests to walk around out there. I suggest waiting 3 or
bit.
4 weeks because there's major fill going in right now. What we did is, remember Jeff, our friend Jeff? Well, we relocated the road south of Jeff, and when we shifted that road, it added incredible amounts of fill and about $190,000 to the cost of the project. And so it also held up the project for 6 months. But as soon as that's done and they come in and have all the grading complete, then we can
Okay.
drive out there.
Once they got it roughed in a little bit and we can get out there, that would be, it looks pretty impossible right now.
That's right.
All right, any other questions or comments for Scott? If not, we'll leave that on the consent agenda. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item 8 is the National Day of Prayer. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This comes every year, I believe. National Day of Prayer is a tradition that predates the founding of the United States of America. Evidence of the Continental Congress proclamation in 1775, setting aside a day of prayer. In 1952, Congress established an annual day of prayer, and in 1968, the law was amended designating the National Day of Prayer as the first Thursday in May. So with the board's permission, we'll move forward with that.
Any comments on the National Day of Prayer? Good day. Good, thank you. That'll stay on the agenda this minute. Item 9, finance the audit contract for FY 15-16. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Brian said, it's another one of these annual activities we do. It's sort of getting late in the fiscal year, so we need to go ahead and award an audit contract for the fiscal year 15-16 audit work. Our current firm, Loudermilk Church, has submitted a proposal. Their price for next year's work, which is actually for this fiscal year, $40,450, which is a $950 increase from the current year, just a little bit above a 2% increase for the additional work required in that.
All right. Comments on the audit contract?
Can we get it for half price?
Look around, let's see.
I think that's going to happen.
Talk to that fellow back there, see if we can get a discount.
Social Security people didn't get any raise this year.
That's right. All right, that'll stay on the consent agenda. Item 10 is BDI position reclassification. Rhonda and Hope together, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Alan Wood, who could not be here today, the President and CEO of BDI, has requested the reclassification of the Senior Administrative Assistant position to the position of Director of Business Retention and Expansion. You guys have been provided a job description to review as well as a history of the position. I'll kind of go over the administrative support position for BDI has been easy to accommodate over the years because we have many similar positions on the pay plan with the county for other departments. But according to BDI and Alan, the role of the position has grown well beyond the administrative role that it originally was. And they would like to reclassify that to the Director of Business Retention and Expansion. The recommendation from HR would be to create the new classification title of Director of Business Retention and Expansion as an unclassified position. What this means is that it does not have a salary grade or a salary range on the pay plan. This action would avoid creating any potential conflicts with the county's existing pay and classification plan. It's also recommended that when this position becomes vacant in the future, for any reason, that the position should be eliminated from the county's payroll and benefits system at that time. So I'll take any questions, or maybe Hope can.
Comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple again, if you don't mind. I have problems approving things that they say if the job becomes vacant or eliminated, that the job will become vacant and we'll no longer have the position. And I think the question here is, why are we creating this position? And what difference does that position? It doesn't give you the reason for changing, or evidently the justification for changing the job description. You know, if it's just to do a pay raise, that's, you know, how does the job differ, and why does that pay raise? They don't tell you what the pay raise, but they said BDI will need to adjust the budget for 16-17 to accommodate the change. So those are the two questions I have.
Rhonda, you want to take or
I
Brian?
actually might need to defer that to Brian since he's on the BDI board.
Hope's
Sorry about that.
position, as it currently is a county job, and her current classification is one that is similar to other jobs that are county jobs. But the nature of what she does at BDI and the expansion in her activities and her role, that exceeds, the Burke County government is not set up like BDI. It doesn't handle the responsibilities of BDI or the new responsibilities that Hope is taking over so that Alan can be doing other things. And what they're talking about is, if you do what's recommended by HR, it goes off of our normal pay and classification system, so there's not a conflict with other positions in the pay and classification plan. And should Hope retire, at that point in time, we would end that as a county position, and that BDI would be solely BDI employees. So they wouldn't be on our payroll, they wouldn't be on our insurance, they wouldn't be on our retirement program. They would be a independent agency of sorts. And within BDI's budget, and you know that comes from a variety of sources, that's how they would handle any kind of changes in the compensation for the employee for the additional responsibilities that employee would formally have at that point in time. Our part of what we fund would still be whatever the Board of Commissioners here approves. So that, you know, that doesn't impact or obligate us as the county, in my opinion, as far as any other compensation issues.
So what, Burke County is presently paying her?
She's a county employee,
Okay.
and
And we're going to reclassify her under BDI.
well, she'll be reclassified with the new job title and descriptions. She works for BDI. It's an unusual arrangement, and I think you've got a little bit of history there that tells you from 1992, different steps and things that have happened at BDI,
Yeah, I read that.
which makes it really an unusual circumstance for a county employee to be in. And again, when Hope's time, she gets her 30 years in, which looking at her is probably another 30 years. You know, she was a child when we hired her.
But we like her, that's okay. But I would have to ask the follow-up question is, why does she not become a BDI employee now?
Then she would lose all of her benefits as a county employee in her retirement. And she's not of age or time to be able to retire from local government.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Well, if it
That's
not,
pretty
I mean,
clear to me.
I can be around
Here,
later
here you
on.
go. Here's Hope.
That's pretty
And I
clear.
guess-
It sounds easier, it sounds like a simpler process if we just transfer her retirement to BDI.
Well,
But
it happens in the county all the time. Reclassification up for raise, that's what it all amounts to. Give the individual pay raise. It's happened, I don't know, hundreds of times since I've been around.
Helps or not. And if it helps to, again, as being part of BDI, but a county employee, I mean, BDI does reimburse for, I guess, all my compensation and all.
Well, how much does that add up to? I mean,
Well, now that I don't know.
how does that break down?
Any benefits that I get from the county, I guess whether.
HR should be able to explain that.
Paul, can you speak to how it's all reversed with BDI?
Well, I mean,
Okay.
the concept, like Brian, mentioned, it's a little strange and definitely unique because early on, Hope was a county employee when BDI was not a separate organization, or Burke Development, or whatever we called it way back in the day. Well, so when the decision was made for the Burke Economic folks to create a nonprofit, entity that, and sort of basically pull away from the county and be a separate, entity of its own, then since Hope was working in that department, she followed the organization and went, as an employee of this nonprofit corporation. But in order for her to maintain her membership in the retirement system and the benefits of a county employee, the arrangement was, well, you'll go to work at this other corporation, or this other entity, you'll still be a county employee, and we'll just bill the entity for whatever that cost is. So there's a zero net cost to the county. It's just like an extra step. We pay Hope, they pay us, instead of them paying her directly. But it is a situation where, that was the only way you could set it up and have Hope remain in the retirement system as an employee. So I think, what Maynard said, on paper, the simplest thing is, they pay Hope directly, but that punishes Hope because she loses, any additional time she would earn in the retirement system. So, but again, the way it's set up, there's no net cost to the county because anything we pay Hope, we get reimbursed from the BDI. So, but.
Well, you got to admit to an average person to say you'd want that position after she retires, it throws a red flag in a hurry that why we would want to create it if we wanted it. But if, we didn't say in here it was to protect the interest she had in retirement and benefits. I understand that. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, basically it was an accommodation that, when this came up back in the early 90s, that, the county made a decision that, as an accommodation to what we had, Hope as an employee. And matter of fact, we had Tom Johnson was Economic Development Director. There was an arrangement at that time where his insurance that the county would pick up would also be reimbursed from BDI. So the county wouldn't be out any cost for that too, up until the time Tom aged out, and I think he now has aged out. So there's no cost for that. But this whole setup was just something that was created as a result of what happened back in the 90s.
She told me she's going to live old as Noah did. What was that, 938 years or something like that?
And I can remember years and years being on the BDI board, or Burke Development. Hope started out more or less as a secretary, and her duties today have really come along where she's really with existing industries and a lot of things that she's the contact person. So her duties as she's matured in this job, and she's taken on more responsibility continually. However, we never, because of her classification, she probably's never got the compensation she really deserves. Any other comments or questions? All right, that'll stay on the consent agendas.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, Danny, you have 11, 12, and 13, all to do with tax collection report, release refund report, and tax collection report. We'll just let you go all three of them.
All right. Thank you. We'll start off with the EMS collection report. This is for February. We've collected year-to-date a little over $1.8 million, which is 61%. There's also in there, I think the comment was made about our collection history, how we stood, and so I gave you sort of a year-to-year month comparison there where you can see that overall we're a little bit behind where we've been, but it fluctuates from month to month.
Comments, questions? Go ahead, Danny, just go on.
Okay. All right, on the release refund report, Kay handed you out a little packet, I believe, right before the meeting that has the releases, refunds, and the adjustments for the VTS. We have releases in the amount of $2,939.49, refunds of $1,409.63. Then on the VTS, the vehicle tax system, we have adjustment refunds that amount to $558.86, and then prorations to taxes, $1,048.91. Those are for March.
Have any comments or questions for Danny?
No, sir, none for me.
All right. Go ahead, Danny.
Okay. Tax collections report. Like I say, we've got the two different types. We've got the property tax and motor vehicle tax. If you look at the property tax portion by what we were budgeted, we are a little over 100% collected. Not 100% of the taxes, but 100% of the budget for that portion of the budget. The vehicle taxes, you'll see there that we're about 76% collected, and we should end up at about 99.5 or 6 at the end of the year on that.
Good. Any other comments, questions on the
Yeah,
tax
and that's on the
collection
back
report?
of the, I think that's on the back of the packet that I
Right.
handed out.
That's a little better than years past, isn't it? That 99 point, it's usually about,
The difference in years past, and I don't want to really bring those out here, and the reason I don't is because in the years past, it was it was a combined tax rate of motor vehicles and property tax. So if you look at the two here, current year tax, we're at 98.33. So, and then on the other ones, I had it percent of possible collections, not a percent of budget. So they're really apples and oranges. But yeah, we are doing I think staff's doing a great job.
yeah.
Other comments? All right, thank you, Danny.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, item 14, our last item under consent is certification of local budget support, estimated operating utility annual costs for capital improvement projects at the Pottery Building. Sandy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk a little bit about this form. It's a Form -3-1 that we fill out for our system office whenever the college has a new construction project. Whenever it's a new construction project, we also have to make sure that the county is aware of any utility costs that would be associated with that building. And what we do is we include these amounts in the budget request that we have annually, so it's not an additional amount that we're requesting at this time. It's included in our regular annual budget. But this project itself is a pottery building that is going to go behind the Ralston building, which is where we're moving our professional crafts clay program. And I asked Kay to give out a map of our campus just so it gives you an idea of where it's going to go. And if you see Building C near the top of your map, there's a square gray box, and that is where the pottery building will go, which is going to sit right behind the Ralston building, which again is where we moved our professional crafts clay. They were housed in the bottom of the H building, and as we've talked at other meetings, the H building is the building that we are going to renovate for Burke Middle College and the STEAM Academy to be located in the same building. So that will help them out as well. But this building is going to house several kilns that we use, gas, electric, and Raku type of kilns, and then also a clay mixer machine. And another item in this building will be the exhaust system, which is a little bit more complicated than in normal buildings. So those are some of the things that will take the utility costs that we're looking at. And what I did was look at the last building that we built, which was the Emergency Service Training Classroom, which was a modular building, looked at the utility costs that we have there, estimated a small increase based upon the differences of equipment that's in each building, and came up with the $1,900 that you see on page 6 of the 3-1 form. And that includes the electrical, the fuel, the water, and telephone. Of course, there will not be telephone service in this particular building, but the electric, fuel, and water. Plant maintenance and staffing, the first two line items are zero on that form, and this is because with a new building, we do not anticipate any additional cost for maintenance or for housekeeping of this particular building. So the only cost would be the utilities. Are there any questions I can answer on this building or the cost itself?
Comments or questions for Sandy?
Mr. Chairman, Cindy, how about the building you compared this to? How'd you do this year with it? Are you in budget with it? Less?
We're in budget with our utilities, but our utilities are pretty much in one lump sum based upon just how the bills come in. So we don't separate the utilities out by building. The classroom, I used it because those bills do come separately just because it was the last one added. But for the most part, all of our utilities are together. So that would be a little hard to answer, but in total, our utilities are on base with what we have budgeted.
Is the gas you have there for firing ovens, or is that for heat?
A little bit of both. And with heat, we may or may not go with gas for heat. It kind of depends on how that works out when we look at the building of that building itself. It may work out better to go with electric, but it would be on its own system. We're not going to connect it with the chiller boiler system that we have.
When fuel's down about 100%, gas has not come down that much, and that's the reason I was asking the question. That's all I have. Thank
Good,
you.
thank you, Maynard. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
That'll remain on the consent agenda. All right, that takes us down to our items for decision, and the first one is Board of Health appointments and removal. Kay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Seat number 5 on the Board of Health, which is an ophthalmologist position, is vacant. An application was received from Dr. Gresham Orson. He's a retired ophthalmologist. In addition, Bill Allman's seat number 11 at large, he has recently resigned. We have received 2 applications from Adriana Morris, which is a school social worker and interpreter with strong ties to the Hispanic community. And the other applicant is Gwendolyn Stevens. This appointment would broaden the diversity of the Board of Health in gender and ethnicity, and it would make the board composition more reflective of the county's population. So we're asking to appoint Gresham Orson to seat number 5, to remove Mr. Allman's name from the roster and thank him for his service, and to appoint someone to the Board of Health, seat number 11 at large, to complete an unexpired term ending December 31st.
All right, questions for Kay on that item?
Done. It's just good to have more than one to choose from.
All right, I inadvertently left out a sentence. The health director recommends the appointment of Adriana Morris. I left that part out because she's has strong ties to the Hispanic community.
And we don't have anybody Hispanic on the board right now, so that would be a plus, definitely a plus. Any other questions on that appointments and then the retirement of Bill Allman? By the way, Bill Allman has been a long-time Board of Health member and been chairman for a good number of years, and his health has not been good lately, and Bill just resigned about a month ago, and we're going to miss him on that board. So, all right, if there's no change to that, this item will remain on the agenda. Number 2 is Burke County Public Schools additional funding requests for FY 15-16. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I believe you've received a copy of this letter of request in which the school system has asked for $739,564 of additional funding to their budget, and they broke it down for us. Finance officer and I have looked at that, more of the finance officer because of his knowledge of this, and we believe the part that the county would be more directly responsible for is about $101,567. I don't see us picking up some of the other parts that we believe the Paul and I, that are generally state responsibilities.
So you're saying, Brian, we pick up, what, 101,000?
Yeah, Paul has had the actual breakdown of the parts of all these that are generally the county's responsibility and came up with that figure.
Paul?
Yeah, the manager and I had spoke with Mr. Lawson to go down each of these items just to get a better understanding of, are these, items, are they local funded positions, local expenses typically, or are they expenses that, are for state personnel or state expenditures that, the funding would normally come from the state? And so the items that we identified were the first two, and I think it was 4 teachers out of that next group, that are locally funded teachers, and then the last 2. And I think from my understanding of what I got out of this is, it looks like a situation where a lot of these things are increases that the state had put in place, and so obviously if they're locally funded teachers, then those would come out of local funds that we supply, and if they're state funded teachers, then that would be a cost for the state to bear. So we just went through these items and tried to identify as best we could which ones are the locally funded expenses and which ones relate to state-funded positions.
Paul, did we ever get when the schools had the 12 million surplus, have we ever gotten documentation how they spent that money?
I don't know that we actually asked for,
Could we ask for that if we have it? I'm just curious. $12 million is a lot of money, and I don't know how that plays in or plays out with any of this, but I would think it's appropriate to ask for that.
Yeah, I'm certain we can make the request. I mean, I think Keith's here. I mean, I don't know if that's something that he has handy or if it'd take some time to compile.
Well, I don't expect him to have it today, but I mean, I think that's something that the commissioners would like to know. That was, how was that 12 million surplus spent over the years or whatever?
Yeah,
I would like to know.
Yeah, we can make
I'm sure
that
the other
request.
commissioners would like to know. Comments or questions on this item on the schools?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just offer one. It just came to mind that, if we had 25 teachers that went from 33K to 35K, and 22 that went from 33 to 36.5K, 45 teachers stepped up to the next pay tier, whatever that was. And then you're looking at the additional health insurances and all that. And if these are not county employees and are truly state employees, we might offer, and I don't know if there's anything out there, we might offer to lend a helping hand to the school board by getting a hold of our senators and congressmen and suggest maybe they need to ante up some money. And that, that'd be a decision that this board would have to make. But if they're going to give the pay raises, we might ought to remind them they need to do it all, not part of it.
You know what they say, it rolls downhill and that's where it stops.
Other comments, questions? All right. Without objection, we'll leave that item on the regular agenda. And so we're asking really for $101,000 as your recommendation, I guess.
Yes, sir, that's what we believe would be truly related to county's obligation.
All right. All right. Next item is item 3, general services, solid waste disposal, landfill closure, bid award, GCL installation. Chris?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I had thought I would be coming today to present the results of a bid opening. However, I'll get to that in a moment. I don't quite have that ready yet. I spoke to you several months back about the closure of the C&D, which is the construction debris landfill that's over the old closed MSW or municipal solid waste landfill. That was a few months back. The original plan for this closure, in the 90s, the county closed the MSW landfill and then converted it over to a C&D landfill on top. That landfill has now reached capacity and is ready to be closed. And the original plan by my predecessor was to close that facility by county staff, and he proceeded to do that with the staff on site. So I guess over the last couple of years, they put soil on the cap of this landfill to try to close it out. So 6 acres of that area, the very tip-top portion of it, did not pass the state compaction test for the specs for closure of a landfill. So I guess it's important to say that Joyce Engineering, who's our consultant for landfill and solid waste, did not approve of this plan. They recommended against this and wanted it contracted out, but with good intentions, I'm sure, that chose not to do that. When I came on board, this was in flux. About 6 months in, I found out about the project and that we were sort of half in, half out with the closure. I met with Joyce on site, looked at our equipment, looked at our staff and the time frame for the state's demanding of closure, and agreed with Joyce that it was not feasible for us to close the landfill with our internal staff and our equipment. So I came to you, I think, 3-4 months back and stated that we would be coming in the future with a project to have a contractor close the landfill. And the process to do that, just for that 6-acre cap, the very tip top, was to remove some soil that had been placed there that did not pass the compaction, stockpile it, install a geosynthetic clay liner, which is sort of like a roofing membrane. It sort of works like that. If it gets punctured, it swells up and seals and stops water from flowing through it. Then to put 24 inches of soil and compact it back on top of that. That's the project in its entire. Then the area would be seeded, and then it would be tested and applied for closure. The engineer's estimate for that job, the construction portion, is $633,000. In 2015, the budget year 2015 prep, my predecessor did not budget for that amount because the plan was to close it internally. When I came on in January, I immediately started the budget process for 2016's budget and didn't know about the project, so I didn't budget for it either. So now we've come to the point where we need to close it, and that needs to happen. Construction needs to actually begin during the month of May 2016. The first bid, which we took last week, the first pre-bid meeting, which is mandatory, we want to meet with contractors on site to, number one, to let them look at the site, let them look at the toe of the slope, exactly what this looks like, and let them ask questions in person. We require that to be a mandatory bid meeting, and we only had one person show up for that. We had 2 other folks lined up that had the dates confused, and we called them. They said, yeah, we thought it was the next day, so they didn't show up. Unfortunately, we can't accept bids because of that fact. We didn't have enough. So our second round will begin this Thursday with the pre-bid meeting, and we believe we have enough folks lined up that we will get results from that. And I'll bring those to you in the May meeting. Those bids will open on the 19th of April. So unfortunately, I don't have bids to show you today and talk about, but since it was on the item was on the agenda, I thought it'd be a good time to at least prep you that this was coming and take questions if you have any.
Comments, questions for
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that your predecessor had planned to do it from within.
Yes, sir.
Is that possible? Do we
It
save
is
a
not.
bunch of money?
We don't have the staff or the equipment that's needed to do this job, in my opinion, and in Joyce's opinion.
they just threw dirt on it, right?
Correct.
Try to compact
That's
it,
correct.
Which doesn't fly today.
That's right.
Did we at that time?
No, not in my opinion. I can only give you my opinion. I wasn't here then, but unless we had equipment that I don't have today, my answer to that would be no.
What kind of equipment does it take, in your opinion?
Well, you need several articulated dumps, which we don't have, and also enough labor to physically run the closure as well as run the operations of the landfill, which we don't have, and skilled equipment operators, which we don't have. We don't specialize in the closure business, closure construction. We can certainly cover up, do daily cover and compact garbage, compact debris, but closure is a specific technical job that we really don't have the in-house knowledge to do.
So we wouldn't have the expertise if we had the equipment, is that?
That's right. There's a combination of the two, but I don't believe we have.
And the cost comes from where?
That's a
630.
633 is the engineer's estimate. Certainly could come in less than that. I know Joyce and they generally budget on they forecast on the high side. I'm hopeful that it'll come in below that, but that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that.
But does that come out of any fund, or is that got to come out of fund balance?
That has to come out of fund balance. It certainly was not budgeted. That's right.
Or that it would be built into the new budget, Brian?
Well, he's saying that the work would need to be done in May, which would be in this
Well, I mean, if you were going to not award bids until May, would any work actually start before July 1?
Yes, the construction needs to happen May. It needs to begin in May 2016.
So if
That's the state reg.
If the board don't award the contract till middle of May, or they'll start like immediately after it was awarded?
Yeah,
About
that would be the
a month.
hopes. If that doesn't happen, then we would be in non-compliance with the state closure plan.
Okay, so basically we'd have a month and a half of work that would relate to this budget year. Yeah.
That's
So,
correct.
Yeah, but I think to answer the question, that amount of cost would probably be very small and could probably be handled out of the solid waste, fund itself. But the larger piece of that would have to come out of the general fund's fund balance because that fund does not have the resources to handle that.
So that's not good.
Yeah.
Chairman, Chris, would it be fair to get you to do an guesstimate? $633,000 buy a lot of good equipment, but if it did the job, you'd have it to use the next time around. Would it be even feasible, possible that we ought to think that way?
I can only give you my opinion. My opinion is that you wouldn't have enough time to find the funds and to purchase the equipment and acquire the equipment before you would need to begin construction in May. And it still doesn't address the in-house, the lack of in-house knowledge with technical construction like a closure. While you might be able, long-term, to get the equipment, and long-term, you might be able to get the training and the experience possibly, it would not meet the state's plan. And we are a year, it is important to note, I haven't said this, we are a year and a half behind, and we've asked for 2 permit modifications. Every time you ask for more time, it's a permit modification, which is a $1,000 fee. It's a state permit. And we are a year and a half, which is 2 requests behind our original date, which was October 2015.
Well, I'm just obviously thinking about citizens of Burke County. If it takes 10 people 2 months to do the job, that's 10 people we hire from Burke County and not somewhere else. And you employ Burke County people. But it feels like to me you could hire the expertise for a few weeks, but I don't know that. And that's the reason I asked the question. Is it even worthwhile to think in that direction for this specific job?
Other comments, questions for Chris? All right, thank you, Chris. That'll remain on the agenda as printed for May. All right, good, thank you. All right, with that, I don't think there's any reports. We have some other discussion items, and I think we talked a little bit in the past about maybe having some meetings back out in different municipalities again, which I think staff and the county commissioners have been on the board for a while really have enjoyed. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At our March pre-agenda meeting, you all indicated a desire to hold some of your meetings, regular meetings, off campus to reconnect with citizens. In thinking, for logistical purposes, I'm asking you guys to consider holding pre-agenda meetings off-site. That would just eliminate having to redirect the minister, the scouts, those type folks. So if you all would be okay with holding your pre-agenda meetings off-site, we did have 6 respondents to our request for off-site meeting locations. The town of Glen Alpin is available July 5th. And we talked about July 5th and October 4th. Again, Glen Alpin, July 5th only. Town of Rutherford College are open on both dates at this time. The town of Hildebrand offered their depot location. The town of Valdez, both dates are open, but they cannot provide a meal. The George Hildebrand Fire and Rescue Department, both dates are open, and the South Mountain Fire Department, both dates are open. So if you would let me know which 2 locations you would like to visit, I will amend our resolution for the meeting schedule and put that under your consent agenda.
Does anybody have any preference, or just leave it up to Kay to,
We'll go alphabetical.
could do that? Want to do that? And we
Okay.
can sort of circle it. That's a good idea.
All right?
All right, and that'll go on consent agenda, I guess.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, I think that concludes our pre-agenda. I don't see anything else here. Youth and Government Day, April 28th, lunch at the Ag Building, and then the little follow-up we have after that with the kids, and we all enjoy that. So with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn, take a break, and then we'll go into our recess meeting at, we're going to be a little late after, it's supposed to be 4 o'clock, but we'll go into that after maybe a 10-minute break. So a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, like sign.